love you. And I miss you. I love you more than you love me. My love you. Here we go. Here we go. I love that music. It gets me so hype. Hey, everybody. It's Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. I am your host. I am Dr. Lisa Liggins Chambers. Hey, I see you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh man, I look forward to today every single week. I feel like I have so much to talk about, but I promise you, I will not keep you beyond 50 minutes. I know I kept you for a long time last week, and I am sorry, but sometimes I have a lot to talk about. And it also depends on if you guys participate. So if you have any questions, make sure you hit me up on any social media site, Twitter, all of them. I'm on all of them. You can also join the podcast live on Podbean. I love Podbean actually, and I would highly recommend it if you want to start your own podcast. And you can email me at kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. And you can also call me 765-205-1959. That's my sexy voice. Oh man, I was really thinking about Blog 25 since last week. And you know what? I do have a lot to say about Blog 25. So we are on volume number 35. I've had 35 weeks of this podcast, and it's definitely not possible with all of you. So thank you so much again for joining. So we are going to get right into it. Blog 25, Biblical Parents. This is number 2 of this segment. I wrote this because I was sitting back dealing with a parent who was talking to me about whether or not her child was haunted. And so, you know, you meet all kinds of parents in this field. I've met some of the best parents, some who've modeled parenting for me. I've also met some really bad parents, some in between. So I've had experiences with parents who's, I broke this down before, who have either a secular view of their children seeing ghosts. And then today we're going to talk about a spiritual view. And this is not just individuals who are Christians or believe in the word of God. I mean, I have met parents who actually worship Satan too. So that's their spirituality. And so I accept all parents and kids. I don't care, what they worship. My job is to, be a blessing for those kids. And so with that in mind, if you are in the field, you know that you have to release yourself from your biases. So let them go in order to work with parents, because you meet all kinds of parents. Remember, I said last week, I met some parents that were a part of a cult. I've met parents like that a couple of times. I've met parents who were in a certain part of the continent of Africa, and they worship something totally different than our traditional religious beliefs here in America. And that's fine too. So you get those who believe in, Catholicism, all kinds of religious viewpoints. what's interesting is that most religions talk about a paranormal world. And for some reason, there are a significant amount of people who don't believe in that, although they are religious. Well, I've encountered parents who I call biblical parents. And you would think that these parents that had a spiritual view, if you will, were very easy to deal with because in most of our minds, it's, well, if you believe in, biblical practices, then you know that there is a paranormal world out there. And the funny thing about that statement is that some of them know it but reject it with their kids, and then some deny it. And so I've encountered both. Um, but you would think that it's easy because they will already believe in the paranormal. I mean, think about it. When you think of paranormal activity, not all of us can see, ghosts. I cannot see ghosts. Some of you actually can see them. So if your kids are telling you, hey, I see, angels, or I see dark angels, and then they're telling these biblical parents, and you would think that they would have a pretty good grasp on the paranormal, but they were actually some of the hardest parents to work with, right? They were so hard. So, from my experience, and your experiences can be different from mine, but mine was more difficult with them. One reason is because, you know, quite a few biblical parents, and I have some in my head that I'm thinking about. If I pause, it's because I'm thinking. Like when we were in building 2, when I was housed in building 2, and all the kids and the staff knew that, some of these buildings had disturbances. Building 2 definitely did, and so did building 4. And so even when the kids, would come into the building and tell their parents, in particular, more spiritual parents, that, for example, there's a little ghost boy running down the hallway. These parents were, some of them, pretty quick to, reject it or deem it, the ghost, as a demon, and want to, do what they need to do biblically to get rid of it, right? And some of them would actually reject what was happening. They were much harder to work with because they did have a foundation in spirituality. So they weren't always open about these things. It was always, my kid is possessed, or my kid is seeing demons, or my kid is now needing a seance, different things like that. And there was this automatic belief of those things, as opposed to trying to help their kids better control, their gift. So I always thought that was interesting because, and it wasn't all of them, but a good majority of them were very conservative when it can't use conservative religion. Go figure that one out. But they were very conservative in their views about, paranormal activity with regard to their children. And so I found this hard because they were afraid to, some of them, not all. When I'm talking about these parents, I'm not talking about all of them, some of them. They were afraid to face the challenge of, what their kids were actually telling them that they see. I used to equate it almost to, what would we do if God actually came down to earth, right? Well, we hear about God. Some of us pray, some of us get religious in our own right, but we've never actually visually, those of us who cannot see ghosts, we can't see these things. So sometimes the unknown can be scary, and that's kind of what I think. Some of these parents were going through. They were afraid. They were either afraid that this was real, and it wasn't mental health, or it was mental health, a mental health disturbance, or it was actually confirmation that God does exist to them. And it didn't, again, God doesn't imply one God when I say that. That's a general description of, a being that people worship. And again, that could be someone who worships Satan. Okay. So don't twist my words. Um, the most difficult, the most difficult biblical parents were the ones who could see ghosts. Now, doggone it, you can see ghosts yourself. Does this make sense to all of you? Because it didn't make sense to me. You can see ghosts yourself. You see angels. You see some of the same other ghosts, which they equate or they call demons. Kids will call them dark angels. Do you see dark angels too? So you see everything that your kid can see, but you still reject it. That was really difficult for me. And these parents had a certain amount of anxiety as well. Anxiety about their kids' ability to see ghosts. They weren't necessarily relaxed about this at all. It was definitely something that put them on edge. So I wrote in the blog some examples that children would actually say to me, that would come from biblical parents, and I want to talk about this in a little detail, because I always say parents, we are the mothers in particular, the umbilical cord to a child's world, and words matter. And so, more times than not, we have the ability to either make or break our kids. And so, one of the ways that you can easily break a relationship with your children, but also a relationship with your significant other, is to talk too damn much. Just talk too damn much. You know what that means? It means you are saying a lot of emotionally hurtful things to that person. So I heard more times than not from biblical parents hurtful words. For example, you are possessed. Possessions to these kids are scary. See, these kids are on a different level because they can see ghosts. So they're actually seeing all this dark stuff. They are fully, I don't care how young they are fully aware of the fact that this is a different ability than most people. But also, what? That dark ones are scary. So if you tell them that this dark thing has now overtaken their body, well, I mean, as adults, if someone tells you that, wouldn't you run and get scared? Okay, so kids are like, oh my God, this thing is within me. Sadness, this thing is within me. Anxiety, all of these things. Okay, and so that was one thing. The mothers not liking what the kids see. That's another one. I don't like what you see. I don't like what you see. Kids are like, well, I'm confused because A, I don't like it either, but B, why don't you like it and you can't see it? And I don't know what to do about it. I can't, kids always want to make their parents happy. I can't make my parents happy. So what am I supposed to do about it? So they get confused, and there lies the anxiety there. Here's a big one. My parents think I'm crazy. I heard that a ton of times, not just with the parents of children that can see ghosts, but in general. I actually heard that statement about a week ago from the parent, and I was like, don't say that to your kids. My parents think I'm crazy. When I tell them I can see ghosts, they say, oh, you're just crazy. Something's wrong with you. You're just crazy. You just need to see a psychologist, blah, 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 blah. Some of these parents would refuse to listen to their kids tell them that they could see ghosts. So they totally rejected it. I'm not hearing it. You know, that would imply that you're possessed or you can see demons. I'm shutting it down. The answer is no. I don't want to hear about it. What does a kid do when they don't feel like anyone can listen to them or hear them when they're hurting? Well, sometimes they try to hurt themselves. Okay, sometimes they do things like cutting because no one will listen to them, numbing the pain. So there are a lot of different things that kids will do to make sure they get the attention that they need. And here's what was something that was interesting too. Because some of the parents were, I hate to use this word, but it's the only one I can think of quickly, paranoid about what the kids are seeing, they would make them carry a Bible, make them carry it to school, make them carry it, obviously to church and things like that. So it was a, it was pretty, it had gotten pretty interesting with these parents because they will also use scriptures to justify their stance with regard to what they thought about what their kids were doing. So sometimes you would see these parents making the kid, I was seeing, making the kids carry Bibles saying, God was able to cast out demons. Yeah, he did put that in a lot of different scriptures, but do kids really understand that stuff? Do they really understand it? As a parent, not being able to protect your children from the scene is amen to that one. Being able to protect our kids from what we can see is hard enough, but gosh, what we can't see is even harder. The problem here with these particular parents, where I would challenge them, is that, especially the ones who could see, you're making the kids feel as if something was wrong with them or just negative, putting a lot of negative energy, into these kids. And in their defense, it was their way of trying to protect their kids. And I get that. But what I was seeing, the outcome of it, is that these kids were getting full of symptoms of anxiety. I mean, they pretty much already had it because of the things that they, would see. But when somebody is telling you, some of the things that they would tell their kids, even if their intentions were good, it was not helpful for these kids. One of the things that I did appreciate about these parents, amongst a lot of things, one of the things is that they would try very hard to teach their kids to pray. Now, here's what happened. Because I've talked to you guys about how, teaching them how to control their gifts through prayer actually helped me. But here's the thing. These parents were replacing listening for, if I tell you what to do and I tell you how to pray and I tell you to pray, you will pray. And that's it. End of story. Well, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. The way that I would set it up with these kids is that I would allow them the catharsis or the release. They would have a total catharsis or release of their emotions for what they're able to see. A lot of these kids have been seeing ghosts for a long time. Think about it. Even if a 5-year-old told me they can see ghosts, that's 5 years of seeing ghosts, as far as maybe 2 years, as far as they can recall. Memory, we usually remember things after the age of 3. So maybe 2 years for a 5-year-old. But think about it. If you're 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, some people do remember things from the time they were 3 years old. A lot of people do. So if they have been seeing ghosts even for the last year, 6 months to a year, that's a long time of being afraid. Can you imagine being afraid of something for a year or two and not knowing what to do about it? That's the perspective I would come with these parents, because you have to tread lightly because of their religion, okay? And because they actually did have the best intentions for their kids, they were just causing a bit more anxiety than I wanted to see. Some of them just would not entertain the fact that their kids were telling them that they see ghosts, and so they would come to me thinking that this was just mental health. This was just mental health concerns, and that's it. And so I couldn't discount the fact that they were saying that they saw ghosts. I couldn't do that because that was not helping the kids. If I was focusing on mental health, and doing it the way that the parents would want to do it, for example, just put my kid on medication. My kid is hearing voices. My kid is, you know, paranoid. My kid is making stuff up. If we go that route, then how would they ever trust us, in this field? And so I couldn't do that. So you had to try to change I had to try to change the parents' thoughts in order to help their kids. And it was difficult and it took a whole lot of work and problem solving. Yeah. Some of it also, I have to say it, was judgment, right? Sometimes, and I hear um, sometimes my own friends being judgmental. You know, I remember I heard. I'm a sidebar for a second. I remember that I heard someone be very negative toward another person for their sexuality recently, and profess to be biblical or a Christian, and it just drove a stake in my heart. Some of the work that I've had to do with biblical parents over and over and over again is to open their minds and to close out any bias, not just toward, what their children could see, but in general, because they would come into, the office, their kids for treatment, and the parents would, oh God, I can tell you guys some stories about this. I remember, you know what? I didn't write about this, but I will tell you specifically about this. There was this really beautiful teenager, female, that came to me. And um, the mother, this was in St. Louis, the mother shared with me that she wanted me to, quote, fix her child because her child liked girls and it went directly against their religion. So something was wrong with her. And on top of that, um, the mother didn't know, but this child shared with me that she could see ghosts. So set the seeing ghosts aside and just understand, just from my perspective for a minute, when the parent and this child, this teenager came to me, and I'm like, oh my God, you said something's wrong. You said based upon religion that something was wrong with her and that I should do something about it because you don't believe in the same things that she either feels for herself or believes in. Just wow. I will never forget that. And this was a teenager who was actually starting to get into a lot of trouble. And so the mother equated this, her daughter being a lesbian, but also getting into trouble with the fact that, she was either possessed or she's sinning because she's a lesbian. All kinds of, religious beliefs there. I don't knock anybody's religion. And I don't even try. This was a teenage girl. And I don't even try to put my own, you know, religious thoughts onto other people. I just don't think we should do that. But one of the things we definitely have to do, I think, is to, help children minus the judgments and the biases. And I worked hard. And it was hard with this teenager because she had her own beliefs. She was 17 years old. She had her own beliefs and said she started cutting because her parents just won't love her for the way that she felt she was, with regard to, liking girls. And so that's the kind of stuff I would deal with. Now, add the fact that this teenager rather, could see ghosts. Oh my God. And I knew she really could because she actually told me again a lot of the things that were around me that kids over the years have told me. And remember, this is without me telling these kids what I've heard. Obviously can't see, but what I heard is around me. And so she did that. So I knew she could see ghosts. And so when she finally told her mother, it was all she wrote. She was possessed. I needed to do a seance on this girl. So you see how um, her first line was not to embrace, the emotions that her daughter had. Her first line, I kid you not, come to see me, was fix her. Something is definitely wrong with her. Fix her. So this was a case where I had to do a lot of treading lightly and also problem solving. So in this situation, what I decided to do was to start, I had to separate them. Can you imagine what a 17-year-old, the argument in this case between the two of them? I had to completely separate them. I cannot see them together. So that was the first line of problem solving. 17 in some states, they are actually adults. In this case, she was actually considered an adult. And so I started seeing her alone, and we worked through a lot of the things that she felt was bothering her. And you know what the primary problem for this child was, this teenager rather? It was not the fact that she was a lesbian. She was secure in that. And that was not problematic for her. Neither was it problematic for me. What was internally wrong with her was the fact that she kept seeing dark entities. And that's why she kept trying to get away. And that is why she had anxiety. And that is why she was sad, because of her young life for her. That's what she was able to do. And she couldn't escape it. When she told her girlfriend left her. Who was a beautiful girl, too. She's very grown now, and I haven't seen her since we stopped treatment. But that's a situation where, you have a biblical parent, you have a child who sees ghosts, which is the primary concern for the child, not the mother. The mother's primary concern was that I needed to fix her because she was a lesbian, and because obviously the mother felt like she was having some symptoms of a mental health condition, and all the while, this teenager was upset and scared of the different ghosts that she was seeing for a long time. So, what would a treatment plan look like for a kid like this? For those of you who don't know what a treatment plan is, it's exactly what it sounds. How are we going to treat this child's symptoms? How are we going to make this child feel better? What is the psychological plan to address this teenager's symptoms? And you know what we did? It was unforgettable. I can kick myself, man, because I don't have all these pictures and stuff. But this one would draw me pictures, and we would sit there and process the pictures, and that's what she wanted to do. So you know what? Sometimes it doesn't even take like all of this trained treatment that we learn in school. Sometimes it takes thinking outside of the box and going with the flow and seeing what they want to do. And that's what she would do. So she would draw me pictures of some of the things that she was scared of, that she would see. And then when she would draw them out, she would come to me, and she wanted to understand how to control it. She wanted to have more independence and how she dealt with it. She wanted to be like someone I know that's close to me that sees ghosts, who will totally just be like, go away. I'm not dealing with you. In the name of Jesus, blah, blah, Father, Son, all that stuff, go away. That's what she wanted to do. And so she didn't want it. I mean, she was clearly like, what am I going to do about being a lesbian? I was like, I got to go find a girlfriend because the one you had doesn't want to be with you anymore. So it was just as simple as that. Wiped it away, let go. Now, what happened with the mother? Mom and I had to have a little discussion. This was a grown teenager. That sounds so funny, especially having had one of those myself, a grown teenager. But we can only control what our kids do so much, especially when they're that age. So we had to start working on changing mom's thoughts, letting go some of the authoritative discipline that this mom, yeah, that this mom was giving her. Somebody said a come to Jesus moment. We did. And the cool thing about this mom is that, oh gosh, I remember her to this day. Now she sounds like she's stuffy and she would be hard to deal with, but the cool thing about this mom is that she was actually very flexible in thinking with regard to parenting. She was adamant. I wasn't going to change her mind about leaving her daughter's sexuality alone. I can tell you right now that didn't work in her favor. What did work in her favor, however, is how she gave her opinion. So you see, there was no way, no treatment plan. I didn't treat adults anyway. That it was a matter of being a bit manipulative and working with the mom and teaching her how to listen, accept, and then possibly giving her advice. That's a skill that I actually use with my own kids. Sometimes I'm so tired and I listen to people all day long and I'm like, oh my God, I got to go home and listen to my kids. So what I do is whatever they say to me, like if they say, oh my God, we saw a movie at school, I'll look at them and smile and say, what movie was that you looked at school? And they go, oh my God, it was Frozen. Frozen? And then I'll phrase it and look like it's a question, like Frozen? And they'll go, yeah, let it flow, let it go. And I'll be like, oh my God, you just sang that so well. I bet that was so fun. Did you like it? Yeah. Now it sounds like it's just an easy conversation, right? Right? Yeah. It's not what this one was doing. Here's what this one was doing. Mom, I'm going to go pick up my girlfriend. You really need to rebuke the devil out of you because you are committing a sin. You are sinning if you believe that having a girlfriend is acceptable and God will send you to hell because of this. Who's going to talk to their mother if their mother does that to them? I don't know. One time there was a girl being mean to my oldest daughter. She did something. The girl, and my daughter is like really nonchalant. She's like, oh, I don't care about girls like that. But she did mention it to me, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, what am I gonna say to a 19-year-old girl about this? And I had to channel my teenage girl. And I said, you want to get on Instagram and talk bad about her? We can text each other about her. And she thought that was so funny. And she was like, oh, we don't have to do that and blah, 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 blah. So it started a conversation about what happened. I said, and I got your back. Just let me know. And we can go on Instagram and look at her photos and go, ugh, I don't like that outfit. And she was like, ha, 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 that's so funny. She did have on an outfit and the outfit was this. And I was like, I know, girl. She shouldn't have put on those shoes with that dress. So it's all about, how receptive you are. And this is a mom who was not receptive at all. So every conversation this child would have with her mother was always, you are a sinner and you're going to hell and you need to stop. You need to stop liking this girl. So imagine this kid throwing in the fact that, yeah, wow is right. That's how I felt. I was like, wait a minute. Is that what you say to your kid? She's just telling you she likes girls. If you don't like that lifestyle, you can deal with it a different way, but not to make your kid feel the way that she's feeling right now. So she wouldn't talk to her mother, and that's why they had such tension. Makes sense? And that was not atypical from our loving biblical parents because, again, they did want what's best with their kids. Sometimes they just weren't showing it the right way. And so that's where I would come in. And actually, I would break their communication down in front of them. So when their mom would do that, I would give her a timeout signal like, wait a minute. what if you went home and told your husband something? Because, of course, she was married. And he said, you mean to tell me that you spoke to your boss like that? They need to fire you and then you're going to hell. It made me laugh. It was true, but when you put things back on her like that, she would respond and she would laugh, and say, well, yeah, that does sound kind of bad. I'm like, oh, you'd be ready to divorce your husband. And it was, well, divorce is a sin. I was like, Jesus, I'm never going to get through. Jesus, no pun intended. I'm never going to get through this, Mom. But she was actually, relatively cool. And so there was a lot that I appreciated about her, but also appreciated about biblical parents as well. When I do talk about these parents, I don't want you to get the impression that I had negative thoughts about them, because that is not true. But I will say I have had some negative thoughts about parents that neglect their kids. So complete honesty here. But biblical parents had good intentions too. Okay. So one of the things that I appreciated about these parents is, I have to say it, how much they did know about the Bible. Doggone it. There were times when I was like, Jesus did that? Let me see where, or, I like the fact that they would embrace the ideas that I would have, because remember now, their kids can see ghosts. So when their kids saw God's angels or called upon God's angels to help, I can say, now, God doesn't like that, and his angels are standing right there according to your kid, and they'd be like, I mean, you had to see me in the video, they'd be like at attention, like they're in the military, like, you're right. Do they take prayer to God? And their kids will nod their heads like, yeah. So I'm like, you better not be judging your kid, because God is going to know, because this angel is going to go back and tell God what you just did. Oh, man. These parents are funny. The other thing that I liked is that they were completely honest. These were honest parents as far as how they felt. I mean, and they would have something to say about everything that I said, which is fine, but they would use the Bible and say, now, Dr. Lisa, you know good and well, I know that the paranormal world exists, but my kid is possessed by a demon. I have some funny stories. They would crack me up. And so, how do I say this? There were times when I had to ask them to put the Bible aside and just look at their kids. Because these, in all seriousness, I mean, I laugh and play a lot, but some of these kids were very distressed, such as the 17-year-old that I talked about. And so I would actually have to have these parents lay their biblical teachings aside to help their kids, because again, kids don't always understand. A 17-year-old obviously had more understanding, but also far more symptoms of mental health, simply because they've been dealing with these things like this 17-year-old have been dealing with, not even the fact that, she's a lesbian, but the fact that she's seeing ghosts. She's been dealing with that for a long time. So what I would do with these parents is I would incorporate both biblical principles and, manipulation, but also psychology, because there's a such thing as, bridging the two to try to help. So it could be something as simple as, well, what did God say about that? Oh, the Lord said, thou shalt not judge. And what are you doing? Oh, probably judging my kid. Yeah. Because all she told you is that she liked girls. So her salvation is her salvation. And that's when they would get quiet. It's not up to you to save her soul. It's up to her. So where do you get off judging your daughter's lifestyle? You let her deal with that, and you love her, and stop yelling at her. Stop beating her up about it because you don't like it. You see how that works with biblical parents? And honestly, it did work. Because what they didn't know What they didn't know was that I knew some principles too. Let me think about that question. This person asked me, I know this is about haunted kids, but have you dealt with the mindset of an absent parent in relation to? Yes. Oh my God, you got to read Twin Flames now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. When you read Twin Flames, let's revisit that question because that's a good one. Oh yeah. There, let me see. You know what? I should write about that. Let me write that down. Twin Flames is a story that will actually answer your question. Let me see the mindset of absent parents. I can write a blog about that with in relation to. Hold on, guys. Somebody asked me a question, and I think it's a great question. Thank you for asking me. To a haunted child. Okay. The other one I can talk about is in relation to neglected kids. Hold on. Neglected kids. Okay. Yeah. You should read Twin Flames again because those are two kids that had almost that outcome that you're talking about. Once you read that, let me know and then we can revisit that question for you. How about that? That will help you. But yes, I have dealt with that. Right now with Twin Flames. The other one I'm thinking of, I can write about that. How about that? I'll do that in the next blog, I promise. I got it written down for you. Next blog. I love it. Keep it coming. Thank you. Okay. So after you do all of that, can biblical parents still be challenging? Heck yeah. Somebody told me to preach. I get on my high horse sometimes, I'll admit it. But certain, just on a personal note, you always encounter some things that just really bug you in this field. And I have like at least 5 things that bug me about parents. Obviously, one is neglect. The other one is any type of abuse. I cannot stand people that abuse or harm children. A third one is judgment. Judgment. It bugs me. We're all human, and of course, we're guilty of doing some of those things, but judgment, and to the point where you harm other people. That's a disclaimer. Judgment when you harm other people. This 17-year-old was being harmed. I don't think it was intentional because even if I think about my own kids, I'm very honest with them. And I always tell them if no one's honest with you, you can always say, even when I'm no longer on this earth, that my mom was always honest. It's how you do it. You can be honest without hurting your kids, my God. And that's what this mother was doing. Okay. So, how do you work with biblical parents? Well, you better get ready and know some stuff so you can challenge them because they're going to challenge you. Okay. And I've worked with pastors' kids and they definitely challenge you. And I'm like, look now, I don't know every scripture. So cut that out. Tell them the truth. They appreciate, and that's all clients. Tell them the truth. You don't want to answer their question. Don't answer their questions. If they ask you personal questions, set it to the side. Let them know you don't answer personal questions. It's always best to be honest with them. Share them if you have younger children, you always want to get a kid's assent. Okay, meaning that you want to ask them, hey, are you okay with me being the voice for you with your parents? And we can tell together. Boundaries are beautiful. That's right. We can tell them together about your ability to see ghosts. So sometimes you actually have to be the voice for these kids. Be a guide into understanding these kids. Parents come to you because you are the expert. I was just telling somebody this today. You have to have confidence. They don't know what you don't know. They're coming to you as an expert. Excuse me, as an expert. So make sure you give them that expert. So what you're going to do is you're remembering that they chose you to help their kid. And so keep in mind that they respect you and they respect your knowledge. Sometimes it's in how you sit in the chair. Sometimes it is in your voice. Sometimes it is in the things that you have read and proven to them that you are actually book smart. Okay. Continue to always provide them with respect. Respect goes both ways, but parents appreciate when you respect their opinions. Don't feel as if their biblical principles or their religion or what they worship is irrelevant. When they practice these religious activities, it is very serious to them. For example, Satan is very serious to some parents. Do not, even if you are Catholic, Baptist, Protestant, Christian, do not judge them. I have seen that go left. Don't judge them. Okay? It is not your job to judge parents that worship Satan. It's not your job. You guys aren't God. How many times do I tell people, you are not God? Stop judging people. It is not up to you. Okay? You got to be able to work with all people. And you respect these parents. Even if they're in a cult, you respect them and their practices. When they have reservations about you, some religious parents like to go to other religious people, and if you are not that person, then you can always refer them to somebody else. Um, you know, it's okay to listen to their hesitancy or reservations about not working with you if you are not as religious. You don't have to see them if you don't want to. You have that choice. Just because clients come to you, it doesn't mean you have to see them. As long as you respectfully refer them to someone else, because that is your ethical duty. You don't abandon your clients. All right. Make sure you explain the differences between mental health and nebulous children, or the ability to see ghosts. If their kids come to you and say they can see ghosts, you have to be able to explain the differences, because they're going to keep asking you, is this a mental health condition? Make sure you're well versed in that. I'm going to say this like 50 times. Your spirituality does not matter. Religion can be intimidating for some people, but they are learning from you. They don't know mental health like you do, and you are able to separate religion from mental health just as we do in the schools. You separate religion from school. Same thing. If you are a therapist, you can do it. Stay focused. Let them know you're not well versed in the Bible. I told you there were plenty of times where I had to tell, certain parents, hey, I don't know that scripture. I just don't. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. And I don't know that scripture. Keep an open mind and teach them flexibility and thinking. That's what I had to do with the 17-year-old teenager. Make them become flexible in thinking with regard to their child's perceived challenges. Remember, they're coming to you because their observation of their kid is what? That they have some challenges. The more that parents trust you, their minds will open up. They'll become more flexible, and then they will bond with you, and your professional relationship with them will allow you to, in their eyes, fix their child. Because that's what they say, fix this. And so you matter. And I'm talking to therapists. So when you encounter this type of parent, don't let them intimidate you. Even if you are not as religious, they don't try to intimidate you, but a lot of what they do is based in biblical teachings, and that's fine. Don't judge them either. That's just what they think. So be able to teach them who you are and why. And what I mean by that is that you are the mental health expert. in this situation. All righty. So that actually concludes blog 25. We are going into the psychological view. So same topic, but the psychological view. And we're going to go back to the basics and psychology on this. Don't be, you know what? Oh, I hate ignorant people. Let's see. I'm sorry. We're getting ready to block this stupid person. Do you know somebody had the nerve to just get on the podcast with some obscene language? I don't know why people do that. That's just really ignorant. All right. So I'm going to end the show before I show my true colors. So you all, thanks for listening. You make sure you have a good night. I'll see you all next week. Woo! Dr. Lisa just almost lost her cool. You guys should see what this fool is writing on this podcast. I hate stupid people. All right, guys. Bye-bye. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.